Hello, everyone. How are you today? Hello, hello, hello. My name is Keisha Brooks, and I want to thank people and everyone, family, friends, uh, sh- new friends, for joining me today on my podcast, A Black Mother Living with Multiple Sclerosis. I just wanted to maybe get down to some of the things that you know, my personal journey, some things that people questioned and things of that nature. I'm not a doctor. I just know what I've been through, and I'm going to share that with you today. Um, I'm in my 40s now, but when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was 17. For a lot of people, 17, you're still out, still partying, you might be going to school. Above. Um, I kind of found out when before I was diagnosed, some things that I went through. I grew up in Bronx, New York, and at 17, I was just starting college. A lot of people might know Hostess Community College right there off the concourse. Um, and with that, I took the train back and forth from my home to school. Um, and one day, maybe around, I want to say February, I'm walking to school, getting off the train, up and down steps, walking through tunnels. Um, and I just felt very hot. I felt very hot. I didn't, really didn't pay any attention to it because, as everybody can see, I'm a little big boned. So, having my coat on and maybe a scarf and a hat, that would add to my heat. But walking back and forth up and down steps, that also adds to your body heat as well. So I get into the school and it's early in the morning. You don't see that many people walking the halls. I ran a little bit late because, like I said, I was feeling a little hot. And I started to take my coat off and to go up some steps. Um, how hard could it be to go up some steps? So I take and I fold my coat over my arms and I have my little bag and I throw it over my shoulder and I go to step on the step and I fell up the steps. Um, being young, being a woman, even if it was a man, and a little embarrassed. So the first thing I do is stop and I look around. I'm looking side to side to make sure no one saw me trip up these steps. Um, and like I said, early in the morning, so I continue on to my first class, didn't think much or nothing. Get into the class, okay, one class, two class. Around my third class, I'm still hot. And now I got a little headache. So I'm thinking maybe because I never really ate anything, maybe I ate too much. Again, I'm a little fluffy. Um, but it just continued on till about my fourth class. And my fourth class, now I'm going back down these same steps. And it's like I completely lost my balance. Like my feet weren't my feet, and I took a tumble down the steps. At this point this afternoon, people are there, you know, everyone ran over because it was such a commotion because books went everywhere, bag went it was just a mess. But, got myself together. I had a gentleman or two come to my assistance. It was nice. Thank you. Um, and again, I carried on with my day. At this point, I'm like, you know what? That was a little bit too much for me. I'm going to head home. So I start back on the train to get to the train station, and I'm still hot. Now I'm sweating, but it's cold outside. Um, and I sit down and I'm on this train and I just get really tired. Like I started taking deep breaths and just hoping and wishing the train would just magically get to 225th at this time. Um, and that day, I remember getting home. I drank a cup of tea in the afternoon and I just went to sleep. Um, Needless to say, within the sleep, I was just sweating and just hot and achy. My body was hurting me. I didn't know what else to do. So, I called my mom. I let her know about what's going on and I just kept telling her something does not feel right. And we go to a doctor, this female doctor, over on Gun Hill, and she tells me, well, the test we took, you're leaning towards lupus. I said, lupus? Then she went into another disease. This disease you get from a wooded area. It skips my mind right now. Um, I live in the Bronx. It's concrete. We don't have any grass and trees. I mean, not from my block like that. We might have one tree in front of my house where I was living, but that wasn't something. Lyme disease. That's what it was. She thought I had lupus. She thought I had Lyme disease. She took my blood. They gave me a CAT scan at that time. And this doctor, she was just she wasn't, how could you say, she wasn't compassionate. She wasn't empathetic. She just, kind of shrugged me off. Well, my mom got really upset and started yelling as my mother did and to let them know like something is wrong with my child. And the doctor on one side of the street, where it was on Gun Hill, there was another building on the other side of the street. So my mom calls and she complains to this kind of helpline. And they tell her, well, you're with one of the leading doctors with the neurology in this hospital. And my mom kept telling them, well, if she's a leading doctor, like I want the head doctor. That's who I want to talk to. Um, and we went back and forth for some days until we got an appointment with the head of neurology at Montefiore Hospital. So I go in one day, the week after, and regular, regular young girl, fingernails done, makeup on, and I go to this doctor, and this doctor is like looking at me. He's like, "You're kind of young, but I'm gonna give you a full workup." So he takes my blood, he gives me a MRI and the CAT scan, and something they called a spinal tap, lumbar puncture. Um, and then began to explain to me that, you know, you can find out a lot of different immune deficiencies, diseases through your spinal fluid. Um, at this time, again, I am a fluffy girl, so they take me to the basement to do this lumbar puncture, and they kind of fold me over the table. And the purpose of that was to make sure my spine would protrude out of my skin. Again, that did not happen. That was not the case. Um, so needless to say, my first experience with a spinal tap was horrible. Um, they tried it once with me bent over this table, and then they tried it again, and then finally, I just told them, I said, if I have MS, then I just have it, because I'm not going through this again. That's too much. It's very painful. Um, and then finally, they sent me to another room where I guess the tech in there had this machine where they kind of take a picture of your spine. It's like an X-ray, and they can see between the joints, because that's where the spinal fluid is. I was livid. I could not understand, why didn't you guys send me there first? Um, so we take this test, and it's sometime the doctor tells me they'll get back to me to let me know um what were the results, and what they look for are the gaps, because spinal fluid goes up and down your spine, around your head, around your brain. So with that, they found what they were looking for. I had multiple sclerosis. Um, Again, it was very painful, but it was necessary. Usually with multiple sclerosis, everything, most things sometimes are not very pleasant, but they're all necessary to go through this diagnosis process. Okay, so now I have multiple sclerosis. Um, Now they want to test me, some more, test the medicines on me. At the time, it was steroids, placebo, and they gave me what they call a titration pack for my steroids, and I took it from there. Um, what I had read with steroids, it gives you a very flat moon face, which it did at this time. So now it's going to school, still going to school and working. But I found myself every time I went to the campus to walk around, walk the hallways, get to class, I was always winded. Then I noticed I felt the numbness in my right foot. Um, Even to this day, uh, my my big toe, is constantly curved. Um, that is just kind of like when you go into a spasm. Well, my feet, my toes, my that big toe is always spasmed. It's been like that for some time. Um, I've gone through different therapies, different medicines. At that time, like I said, it was steroids and placebo. Um, and then when I got home, my mom, she didn't know really how to take it. I'm the oldest of four, and um, it just, I tried not to ever stop my life for this multiple sclerosis. I was way too young. I love to go out, love to be around my friends and my family. Um, but we pushed on. I pushed on. Um, got my license, got my passport. I had one book um, that I had received, I think, from my doctor at the time, telling me about multiple sclerosis. And I read that book for months, maybe for the first 2 years of being diagnosed. And that book, probably one of the newer informations, one of the newer things for multiple sclerosis. It told me of the things that I'd be going through, told me of the fatigue, it told me of the weakness. Um, but they had one particular part of this book that they said most people with multiple sclerosis are usually bedridden by the age of between 25 and 35. That's a big gap. So, and I kind of took that in my mind and I ran with it. Um, just because I didn't want to have multiple sclerosis, not do anything in my lifetime, and become old and bedridden, and that would be it. I've done nothing. There was nothing. I had no kids, so I tried to change that. Like I said, I got my passport. I had a job. I had a car, um, and I traveled. I went over to London. I went over to Paris. Um, constantly in my car, going to see family in different states. Uh, and I just figured, well, maybe I'm going through just a one time thing. I did hear about that in the emergency room um, when I had visited one time. I had an exacerbation and they were looking to take another spinal tap or an MRI. And the doctor at that time told me, well, MS is a funny thing. It's very funny. You can have an exacerbation and maybe you might not ever have another exacerbation. Your MS will stay dormant. Um, you'll have it, but you just won't look like you have it. So I prayed on that. I just said, I already have multiple sclerosis. I'm diagnosed with it, but you know, if God could give me a little more time, let me do some more things. Um, but I think I did well. For the beginning stages of multiple sclerosis, I talked to everyone. I went to seminars that they offered, um, but I just did not want my life to be left in, the shadows, me as a person. Because it can happen with MS. Some people have depression. Some people are very, aggressive. They're very angry. Um, but I look at it like I used to look at it. And I don't think it's a very bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing. But I looked at it like, well, I got an MS because maybe there was something in my life that wasn't right. And God was trying to give me a hint and telling me, sit down now, you know, take it easy. What are you doing? Okay, if you don't want to sit down, let me give you something to sit down. I've always said that. That has always been my thought in the beginning. MS, like I said, it's a very funny thing. Um, when I first got it, no one knew where it came from. There were so many different thoughts, and some doctors said this, some doctors said that. Um, if you can have children, they didn't know if you should have children having multiple sclerosis. It was just something very new. And then I'm walking with a cane sometimes, off and on in the beginning, not a lot. And you notice in your surroundings. I used to still get on the train, go to work, and I just noticed how many women, how many black women looked like me walking with a cane. Or at one point, I had an exacerbation where my mouth went up all the way on the side, and it made me look like the Joker. Um, and again, like I said, you notice things now that you have this disease, and you look at everything. And that's kind of where I was in the beginning. You know, thought about kids, thought about, school, because at this point, it was really hard to keep going to school. And they didn't have, I wasn't familiar with online schooling. I'm not going to say they didn't have it, I just didn't know about it. Um, but I did work. I did have a job. I kept my job for about 8, 9 years, and I noticed things about myself, especially with the fatigue and the weakness, with my job at the time. I worked with kids, and we would have to take them out on recreational trips or to the pool, and I just noticed in the heat, I was no good. I always had to sit down. Didn't matter how much water I drank, but it was to the point where I would get really shaky if I got overheated. Um, or if I tried to step up to lift my leg to get up in the van, it was it was hard. And I don't think stepping up into a van or sitting down in the car and a little heat is blowing on you should make you feel that bad. And it did. So I started logging. I wasn't big on journals at that age. Um, I wasn't very organized at that age, 17 and 18 and 19. I kind of went through my life with, was in a party? Oh, where are we going? Are we traveling? Are we going on any kind of trips? And for a long time, I lived like that. Um, I have 2 children now. I didn't have my kids until hmm, maybe 7 to 8 years after I was diagnosed, because I was in my 20s. Um, and it kept bothering me that no one could tell me what I needed to know about this disease. So everything that I went through in the beginning was like a trial and error. It was an experiment. Am I going to pass it or not? Do I have to go through this? Um, and a lot of people, they get mad because they haven't. And there are a lot of different questions about it. Um, but as a black woman, because at the time I was young, black woman, there was not a lot of information for us. We have a lot of information now how MS works in the with men or with women, not of color, but and with white women. Um, And it's different because our bodies are different. I've realized that in the very beginning because my doctor was a wonderful doctor, but let's face it, he was in a black community, black and brown community, and he, I guess, conformed to us. There are certain things due to finances also um, that I wasn't able to afford, medications that I wasn't able to afford. Just being in Montefiore Hospital. But where there was Montefiore Hospital, there was also another hospital right next door, South Central. And what I couldn't afford at Montefiore, I would just simply go around the corner and make appointments based off of the insurance that I had. Um, it it was something hard to see because I feel like if you're sick and you want to know to help yourself, I think that you should be given that information. Um, but that wasn't the case all the time. I've heard everything. I've heard you should lose weight. Maybe you should um, try yoga, more exercise. Um, when I did my stint in the hospital at one point, the doctor even told me, well, you have multiple sclerosis. You're going to fall down. So your best bet is wherever you live, you use what's around you. You use your your wall, or maybe if you have a sturdy piece of furniture to lean up against. Um, and I mean, you hear so many different things, you kind of just think to yourself, well, you know what? Maybe I'll try this by myself. I'll think of something myself and I'll try it. Um, and also, you know, I'm still young, I'm still working, so I'm just like, well, maybe this MS thing is gonna go away. And it didn't. Some years after, I did have another exacerbation. Um, Pins and needles all up and down my legs and my feet. Couldn't even feel when a doctor stuck a pin into my leg. These are all the tests that they do. I couldn't feel the vibration of those forks, tuning forks. They kind of bang. They put that on a certain part of your legs if you're saying you're exhibiting some kind of numbness, and try to see if you could feel the vibration. Um, all these things I went through in the beginning of my journey. I always asked questions. Um, I never took no for an answer. And it was, needless to say, it was something to go through at 17 and 18 and 19 years old. Um, I have no grievances that I have multiple sclerosis. I just know that if you are going to go through something like that, I think that everyone should be aware. Now, I um I am on maybe next time I think I'll use my computer because I am so sorry. I have a question on the screen and I can barely see it. because it's so small, and I wear glasses. That's terrible. I'm so sorry about that. Um, if I don't get any questions, or if I don't get to answer your questions today, I'll be able to answer some questions um, on the other podcast, because hopefully everyone will tune in again with me on Sunday, and I will do better when it comes to questions. I'll use my laptop next time, but on my phone, I'm so sorry, I can barely see anything. Um, as like I said, okay, now I can say, okay, what are some of the challenges that I face being a mother with most multiple sclerosis? Okay, um, I have two kids, like I said, they're 5 years apart. My son, I think I was more involved with his schooling. We did the hay rides, we did the trips, and I was able to get on off the bus. I was able to do things physically. Um, the older I've gotten, and oh, thank you for the question. Okay. Um, the older that I thank you for the question, Tamara Barra. The older that I've gotten, it's become a little more aggressive with children. Because children, they require you to be social. They require you to want to be there and be mommy. They want you to be around. They want to show you off. And with having multiple sclerosis, it was hard for me because me personally, I felt like I embarrassed my kids because, oh gosh, here comes, so and so with his mom, and we have to accommodate her because she's in a wheelchair or a scooter, or she's walking with a cane, and we always have to wait for them because she takes so long. So I kind of steered away from trips. I always asked maybe a friend of mine, the children's godmothers or aunts and uncles, to maybe, listen, a kid has a trip or a play, or maybe you can go and kind of fill in for me. So the struggles of being a mother, you miss out on a lot of things due to your physical disability. You miss out on sometimes birthdays, just going to the park or going to the pool because maybe it might be too hot that day. And people with multiple sclerosis, they know very much that the heat is something that can aggravate your multiple sclerosis. And when I mean aggravate, it can cause some confusion, disorientation. It can cause your eyesight to go a little wonky. Um, Definitely fatigue. I could walk across the room. It feels like I've been running for blocks. And that's another stigma I wanted to kind of address. When I did get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and all the time I heard, "Oh, well, you're young. You can come back from it." These are from some of the doctors that, I mean, I think multiple sclerosis has been around, but some doctors maybe might not have worked with a lot of patients with multiple sclerosis. So they kind of figured, well, as I got older, um, I would be able to get over it. Good question. Good question from Christopher Barrow. Um, my motivations to make me keep going are my family, um, my kids, my family, my friends. Um, I've had encouraging people. I've had a very big support system. Um, they never, as much as I thought I might have been a burden or a hindrance to my family, they never once made me feel that way. Um, my motivation was the love around me and to see my kids get older, um, to do something more with my life because this having MS, this is not it. That would not be my last call. Um, so with me personally, I mean, everyone I think looks at it as a pro and a con. They kind of try to judge things. Um, multiple sclerosis has pushed me in ways that I didn't think was possible. I have, like I said, I've been able to travel. Um, I've met people. I've met good doctors. I've moved quite a few times, so I have gotten multiple sclerosis from all paths: women doctors, men doctors, older doctors, younger doctors, different hospitals. Um, there are a lot of things that can complicate your thoughts because people they don't understand it and they assume. And I always say when you assume you lose. Um, assumptions just put you in the wrong state of mind. Other people they think with the wrong with the wrong state of mind. Um, but it definitely it can play tricks on you. But with my family and my friends, they've all been loving and helpful and kind. Um, and my kids, they've grown up. I think my son has took this journey with me from the very beginning. My daughter, not so much. My son, he's 19 this year. My daughter has turned 14 this year. Um, they have seen some things with me that has scared them half to death. I don't think any child should have to go through that too many times, but it kind of takes them into reality. Um, again, like I said, I moved to Pennsylvania. I moved to Pennsylvania because I knew New York was a little fast paced for me. And I knew in Pennsylvania that my kids would be okay. Um, it's slow enough for me to keep going for a little while longer. That's always been the case. Let me, Lord God, let me go for a little while longer. Keep my body together for a little while longer. And just so that I can see my kids, help my kids, you know, get them into the right path, be there for them when they need me. And I've done that so far. Um, but then now we have to remember there's all different stages of life, especially for kids. Um, elementary, middle school, high school. And I'm going through them slowly but surely, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change what I've been through. I think that when you go through things, they make you who you are. It looks like there might be another question. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I can't see that on the screen. I'm so sorry. Um, well, good question. I started this podcast because, um, and it's so funny. A friend of mine, so when I came back from Georgia, told me that I brought the idea up And I'm thinking, well, maybe I need to tell my story. Maybe a lot of people might be going through MS as a black mother, as a black woman. Um, and at first, I wanted to write a book. I'm still going to write a book. Um, but a friend of mine, just told me sometimes, because I told him sometimes I just don't want to get up. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to comb my hair. I don't want to put on makeup. And he said to me, he was like, just do it as you are, because people will understand, which is true. Um, but I can't see myself getting in the camera with a little lip gloss or something on. But that's just me. So, yeah, I started the podcast in hopes that this will touch someone, help someone, have someone think like, oh wow, I'm not the only person that felt this kind of way, and I'm not the only person that went through something like this. Um, and hopefully it'll help someone to definitely ask some more questions, because there's no stupid questions with this. It's only a stupid question if you don't ask. So it's like I said, it'll evolve eventually into my book and short stories, whatever so have you. I have thought about so many different things um within this podcast. So yeah, that is something I'm looking forward to doing. um I think that with everything in multiple sclerosis, everything that you have to go through, everything is a learning experience. And that's how you have to live your life. Okay, and it looks like I'm coming towards the end of this podcast. I'm hoping that next Sunday you'll join me again, and you can look on my Facebook page, Kisha Brooks, for the podcast that we did today. And maybe if you missed something, um, but we will be on again on the Kubi TV network. You can subscribe and like, and also comment. Next week I'll be using my laptop, so I'll see your questions better than I did today. Um, and again, the Kubi TV network, you'll be able to find this podcast, Black Mothers Living with Multiple Sclerosis. Um, and next week I'll have some resources for you guys. I know at some times in my journey, um, when you have to live off of Social Security and a little bit of part-time jobs, it doesn't help. So the resources that I have, hopefully it will help someone. I'm getting it together for resources here in Pennsylvania, also in New York, because my journey didn't just start in one place, and it's definitely not over. Um, to all my family and my friends and people that are my new friends, thank you for joining me today. And I hope that if you're experiencing anything that I'm going through right now, or maybe something that I spoke about in the past, um, please get it checked. If you're not a person to be ill, please get it checked, even if it's a migraine, because that's basically where I started off. And you never know. So I would I would like to thank you guys again for joining me today. Um, and I hope that everyone that did join me took something away from it. And that you are blessed in your day and in the rest of your week, starting off Monday on a good foot. Thank you so much, and look forward to talking to you again next Sunday at 4 p.m. on the Kubi TV network. Everyone, take care.